this meeting to order. And of course, as I just mentioned, 5 of us are here. Jim Bellavance can't make it. We can go on to item 2, review approved minutes of the September 17th, 2020 regular monthly meeting. I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make that.
I'll make that motion, Aaron.
All right, looks like Steve's got the motion by a nanosecond, and Rob, I'll give you the second if you want that.
Okay, that'll be fine.
Awesome. So Steve makes the motion, Rob seconds. Are there any changes to these minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes as presented signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? All right, this carries 5-0. Correspondence, let's see, there was virtual forum measuring disparities in cost and spending across Connecticut school districts. I believe I forwarded that out to everybody. If you don't recall getting that, then I can look through my email and forward it out, if that doesn't sound familiar.
I don't recall getting it. I don't know about anybody else. I might have missed it though.
All right, I'll see if I can find it and send it out. Budget ordinance 10-005 memo with attachments. I just sent that out to everybody.
Just now, like 2 seconds ago?
Nah, probably about 15 minutes ago.
I haven't gotten it yet.
Oh, hold on a second. I should have sent this out earlier. I got the request from the first selectman, from Amy, to put discussion of this budget ordinance on the agenda, so I did. And then, Rob Word, you sent out an email to Dottie and me. You may have sent it to everybody saying, where's this proposed ordinance? And I realized, well, there is no proposed ordinance, but there is an existing ordinance. So I forwarded that out to everyone. And I've got a copy of it, so I can always just read it out to everybody when we get to that item on the agenda. That's basically, it's a discussion as the ordinance committee, the budget ordinance, or is it the ordinance committee? I don't even know the name of this committee, but they're talking about make a possible change to it, and they want input from the Board of Education and the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen. So nevertheless, that is correspondence we got over the course of the month. Then there's fire advisory invitation to Board of Finance members to attend their meeting on November 18th. And I forwarded that out to everybody. Hopefully you got that. Is there any other correspondence that I'm missing that I overlooked that anyone remembers getting? All right, moving on to citizens' comments. Are there any citizens who have a comment at this time? Any citizens who have a comment at this time? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to Selectmen's update. First Selectman, Amy St. Ange. Amy, you there? Is Amy there?
Yep.
Oh, there you are.
Good evening, everyone. So I have a few updates and things I wanted to discuss with the Board of Finance tonight, and just kind of give you a rundown on what's going on. Focus in the last few weeks has really been infrastructure and critical situations that the town is facing that can't be ignored any longer. The first being the North Grosvenor Pond Dam, which is privately owned, but has become an area of concern. Last Thursday, Rich Benoit, Steve Benoit, Brian Howell, our town attorney, and representatives from the owner of that dam, Centerville Bank, their CEO and CFO, as well as engineers from Lennard Engineering, met to discuss the breaching of that dam. We are going to continue follow-up with the bank to ensure that someone is appointed to monitor the dam until a solution and remedy can be made. The bank, to quite honestly, they were sort of deer in headlights. When they acquired Putnam Bank, they had no idea that in addition to some of their assets, they were acquiring a dam that was failing. Mm-hmm. So this was news to them. Unless they were really good poker players, they really were quite shocked and alarmed by it. So we are going to continue to follow up with them to ensure that that dam is repaired in a timely fashion. As we're going to discuss later on this evening, I did receive bridge inspections from the DOT, Department of Transportation. Again, we'll discuss it a little bit later, but at least we have a full report now. And please note that this is just bridges that are 20 feet or larger. We will also need to address the smaller bridges. These inspections, the cost will fall on the town, so that's something we're going to have to consider as well. Additionally, we know we've discussed the salt shed in the past, and I'm very grateful that there was $20,000 appropriated in the budget this year. We have begun to work with Earth Environmental Engineers. After an in-depth discussion with our town attorney, he had suggested we reach out to Wayne Bugden. Wayne used to be with CME. He's now independent, and this is his company. He worked directly with Woodstock on their salt shed issue. So we're hoping to gain some insight and help him, or have him help us navigate this situation. We should have a report from him on Monday as to where he suggests we should go from here. Tomorrow, I have a phone conversation with Leonard Engineer to discuss another infrastructure issue, and that is Langer Pond Dam. That's in the Wilsonville section of town. This dam is owned by the town. An inspection was completed in 2018, September of 2018, but nothing else has been done with it. So I'm hoping to pick up where we left off there and at least get insight on where we need to go as far as repairing that dam. When Leonard was here discussing the North Grosvenordale Pond Dam, they expressed to us that the bigger issue in town could possibly be Langer Pond Dam, as far as the conditions are concerned. So these are my critical focus points, and I'd like to create a plan for improvement of these structures. I know it's not going to happen immediately. I know it's going to be exhaustive and tough for the town, but we need to make a plan sooner rather than later. I do have good news that came out of the Director of Planning and Development Office and Mill Sites Committee. It looks like the sidewalk project that I discussed months and months ago that they've been working on, which will be repair of the sidewalks from the Route 200 section of town to Rawson Ave. So that's throughout the downtown section of North Grosvenordale. We should be receiving a letter of commitment to fund. That's a lot SIP project. And I believe, if I'm correct, it's a $2 million project. So it looks like we'll be receiving the grant funding for that. Lastly, a little bit of additional good news. We met with Superior Bakery. We met with the CEO from Vermont. And then about a week later, we met with the Vice President of Operations, also from Vermont. They are looking to expand their workforce. Currently, they're running at about 50% capacity, and they'd like to increase productivity, which could potentially double the amount of jobs in town, could lead to another 75 to 100 more jobs. They're also looking to expand some of their equipment that's automated to help with that process as well. So it's exciting to partner with them and help them find solutions to help them achieve their goals. So that's what's going on in the last month since we met last.
Questions for the first selectman?
Aaron, it's Rob Wurge.
Go
I have
ahead.
a comment and a question. My comment first is a thank you to Amy and the team for the bridge work. That's exactly what we were talking about during the budget process, to understand a little more in depth about the conditions of the bridges, and going after the larger ones first makes a lot of sense. And then on the 2009 comment, that's hanging out for a long time, and we don't need to get in. There's no value in getting into the why. It's 11 years of poor condition, but I would be, my expectation would be that's one that would be high on your list, given that it's been out there at that condition for all those years. And then my question is around the salt shed. Will they be looking at, and Wayne, I've chatted with him myself, he's a great asset. Will he be looking at some options? Because this too was a major topic during the budget process. And what I'd be fearful of is we get the next budget and we have just one option or just the Cadillac option and maybe not some of the other full array of, small, medium, large fixes. If there's more than one fix, I think it would be prudent to look at a wide variety of options to solve the problem of salt in the water as kind of the main risk point for the town as to leaching into the waterways.
I know he is going to be doing some water samples. He has to get a better feel for the site itself. And like I said, on Monday, he's estimating he'll get a report to us to begin his recommendations. So we'll know a little bit more, kind of when he knows a little bit more, when he investigates a little bit more. So again, hoping to have that by Monday.
Okay, thank you.
Any other
Yes,
questions?
Steve?
Go ahead.
I wondered if on the salt shed, has this come up? I think when we were discussing it at budget time, I think we decided or was mentioned that there had been we haven't violated any laws. There's no violation of any sort of EPA requirements. I wonder, is something triggering the salt shed issue, or is it just something we're looking at?
To be quite honest, Connecticut Water has been monitoring, and they've expressed some concern at the rise in the salt levels. In talking to Wayne Bugden, he did make us feel a little bit more relaxed about the situation, but the levels of salt have increased, and Connecticut Water would like to have a conference with us in the near future to discuss it in further detail, which at that point we plan to have Wayne with us, and hopefully we have a better grasp on the situation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for the first selectman? Amy, I was doing a quick Google search while you were talking about, is it Langer's Pond Dam?
Yes,
Is that up in Wilsonville?
Wilsonville.
Yeah, it's like you go up Riverside Drive and then you take a right onto Wilsonville Road, and then it looks like it's like you may not be able to see it, at least where this little, the little red trigger is pointing on the Google Maps. It looks like you might not be able to see it, the dam from the road. I don't know if you can or not. I mean, it must be close to the road though.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And then what was the other, was it the other dam, the one that?
Behind the Knights of Columbus, the North Grovenadale Pond Dam.
Yeah, got it. Okay. So is that the dam that regulates the water that comes into that, that sort of, I don't know, I guess I'd call it a canal, that then eventually flows under the old mill?
I believe so. It was the dam was constructed to be used by the mill. I believe it was 1870,
Yeah, okay.
1872. And some of the equipment that they used to raise and lower sections are still present there. The canal or the spillway is shut off now, but.
Got it. Okay. Any other questions for the first selectman? All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We'll move on to school district update. Superintendent of Schools, Melinda Smith. Melinda.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm going to start off with a series of good news for the town. This past month, because Thompson Public Schools is an alliance district, we have been afforded the opportunity to apply for an Alliance District Buildings Grant Program. And this is a direct grant. We don't have to go through reimbursement or have any kind of a town vote on it. We are able to apply for $477,000 of improvements to our school environment. So the projects that we are targeting for that are a complete upgrade of our telephone system. The telephone system was installed in 2006, and at that time, it really didn't meet the campus needs. Currently, our needs for telephones obviously exceed what was initially installed, and the system itself is so old that there are no pots to replace it. So we're pretty excited that we're going to be able to upgrade the telephone system, and that will include exterior speakers outside the building and also up at the field in case we ever had to have a lockdown. we can certainly inform our students and our faculty and staff who are outside. So that's really exciting. We'll be able to install the dust collection system that we cut out of last year's budget for the manufacturing program. In addition, to put the floors in the older section of Turtle Out Memorial High School that also was removed from our budget. And we're keeping our fingers crossed that if all the numbers come in, we're still able to upgrade the locker rooms at Turtle Out Memorial High School. So we can get a lot of work done that we had pushed forward in our budget, and we had planned on putting in our budget again next year. So this grant comes at a really good time. Yesterday, or the day before yesterday, we got a visit from Earl Rosenbergs, who's the general manager of Fluid Coating Technology, and Jill St. Cyr from It Starts at Home. They're both Turtle Out Memorial High School graduates, and they gave a donation of custom tiger masks for all the students at at Thompson Public Schools. And we are certainly grateful to Earl and Jill for their generous donation. That is a tremendous donation, and they're beautifully made, and it has our tiger mascot on it. So we can't wait to pass those out to the students tomorrow. And then yesterday, Jill, once again from It Starts at Home, texted me and asked if I could use some cookies because Superior Cake Company in Southbridge was donating cookies. Little did I know that we were going to receive 50 cartons of 5,000 cookies that we have now stuffed in our freezer that we're going to keep until Christmas so that we can have cookies with Santa during the holiday time for our students. So that was a nice surprise visit yesterday. We also wanted the community to know that we've applied for the community meal program. That's the same program that ran in the summer. The federal government has extended that until June. So any child up to the age of 18 years can get free breakfast and lunch. They can pick it up in front of the middle school from 12 to 1. You don't even need to be a Thompson resident. If you're in the area, you can certainly pull up and get a free meal for your children. I hope parents take advantage of that. And then Saturday, the Board of Education is making available to the community a free flu shot for our students in the community from 8 to 10 a.m. We're also serving free breakfast. And once again, Jill St. Cyr will be on site because she has 50 brand new coats, which range in sizes, and anyone in need of a warm winter coat for their child can certainly pick that up. So we're pretty excited about offering the free flu shot as well as the coats to the community. I do want to say thank you to our Rec Department Director, Leslie Munschauer. She has been amazing, and the partnership with the town has been amazing when we've opened school. They've helped out with before and after school childcare for our families, and even more importantly than that, while some of our faculty were having issues with childcare because their children attended school in a hybrid model, which wasn't full-time, Leslie and her team was able to help us out and provide childcare on site for those teachers. Subsequently, all those students now have gone back to their own districts, but the first 6 weeks of school was critical. We wouldn't have had staff on site if it wasn't for Leslie and her team. And I thank Amy for allowing her to help us out. Amy and I have been in conversation about what kinds of opportunities we can share and share efficiencies between the town and the Board of Ed. We're hoping to develop a robust partnership with our technology team. And so we look forward to a continued partnership in ways that we can share resources between the town and the school department. Our enrollment, we had to send in our October 1 enrollment numbers. And our enrollment has decreased a little bit, but they always do because the numbers fluctuate up and down until about this time. We have 958 students total in the district. We have 410 at Mary R. Fisher, 305 at the middle school, 243 at the high school. Some good news is that we have a few less students attending Killing VOAG this year, so we're saving a tiny bit of money on tuition, but we're happy about that. We're down to only 20 students at that school. We're in the process now of having our own security team verifying residency for anybody that has an out-of-district child. We want to make sure they're residents of the town of Thompson before we start paying all those tuition bills. In the past, we contracted with EastCon, but they no longer provide that service. So Ben Barber stepped up and his team is going to do those residency checks for us. So, and then bad news at the end is that, you know, without an additional stimulus package for COVID expenses from the federal government, obviously our budget currently is running over. We're just keeping our fingers crossed that more money comes out of the federal government so that we can balance our budget at the end of the year. And that's about all I have.
Any questions for the superintendent?
If I might, the grant you mentioned initially, is that only for physical facilities type of things?
Correct, and it has a very specified criteria, Steve. And so you have to fall within the criteria that they've listed in the grant. I have the grant here. Bill is going to submit this tomorrow. It's due on the 23rd, so we want to make sure we get it in. The good news is it's one of those things that once they approve our projects, they're just going to mail us a check. So that works out beautifully.
More importantly, what kind of cookies did you get?
Oh, they're delicious looking. They're frosted cookies with Christmas sprinkles. Apparently, the company, the weight on them wasn't accurate, and so they were looking to donate them. And Jill was right there to take them, and we were happy to take them in. But we did stuff up our freezers, so we'll be giving cookies out to the kids probably early in December.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the superintendent? Thank you, Melinda. Excellent report as always. I'm always impressed with the work that you guys are doing up on that hill. It's amazing. Thank you. We can move on to financial report with Finance Director Orla McKiernan Raftery.
Thanks, Aaron. So today we're discussing reports through the end of September, first quarter of the fiscal year, fiscal 21. I do have a small correction to the narrative on the report that I distributed to the Board of Finance this week. It should say through the end of September. So it's been a big collection month, this month of September at the tax collector's office. We are to date a total of property taxes of 9.12 million. And if we compare that to where we were last year, and the last year was a little bit of a different year because we had a very late budget, but last year at this time, we had only collected 6.9. So you can imagine how busy it's been in the tax office for the last few months, but particularly in September. Current taxes are 8.95. Prior taxes are higher by 7,000 than last year, and interest and lien is higher by 4,000. We haven't received state or federal grants for the general fund. We continue to get the, we did get, I think I brought to your attention in August, we did receive the first round of TAR money, which is the town road aid money of $126,000. On the expenses side of things, we've currently committed 3.7 million. On the balance sheet, we're decreased by, our cash decreased by 519,000 for the month. And we are higher than this time last year by approximately $1 million. No changes to the surplus. Any questions on fiscal 21 year to date?
This is Steve.
Go ahead, Steve.
I noticed that the expenditures look like substantially ahead of last year at the same time. Is there some particular reason?
Yes.
They're very closely. I just noticed that.
So last year we were in a 30-day budget cycle because we didn't pass the budget until the 29th of September. So typically we would have committed to a lot of open purchase orders, but we had not done so this time last year. So that's where you have a difference.
Thank you.
Just a quick, we're still cranking through year end for fiscal 20. My goal is to keep our books open as late as we can knowing that our audit, we will be providing information with regards to the audit. But the bottom line is, this time last year, we were preparing for the auditors to come in at the end of October. We don't have that currently this year. So I have spoken to Bob. They're very much close and ahead with their accounts payable. We're continuing to monitor and review all of our funds. So, but just to give you an idea of where we are on the general fund currently right now, I think I reported to you last month that I anticipated we'll end the year at about $200,000 in surplus, which is predominantly our fringe benefits line. I don't see too many changes to that. There might be a slight reduction of about $5,000. I did discover one invoice today that we accrued for, we weren't aware of, but that just gives you an idea of where we are. That's pretty much it. That's my report.
Questions for the finance director?
Rob Warge, I have a quick question. Orla, can you speak to the pacing on the tax collections, not versus prior year, because it was not a good year to compare it to, but in terms of overall and generally and how we're pacing kind of after September, where much of the many of the taxes were pushed out if they weren't accrued for right through the bank. So how do we feel on a pacing perspective?
Well, Rainey will tell you that he's very, very busy, but the one thing he is seeing is more checks are coming in the mail than face-to-face. So that's one of the big difference that he's seeing in relation to other years. Obviously, as you say, we can't really compare to last year's because the bills went out late. I can't say with regards to where we'll be going forward for the next few months, but in reality, and I don't have a comparison going back 2 years, but typically, let me just see if I have the report from Rainey, because he may have 3-year data in there. Is he on the call? I don't think so, is he?
I don't think so.
Okay.
We can push it to next month, Orla. I'm interested in terms of the bad debt reserve that we have. We had a lot of discussion about whether that would be enough or not, and just kind of crystal balling at this point. Do we have enough, and are we outpacing what the uncollected piece would be? That's most important. We can talk about it next month.
And I provide that to you next month.
Super. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions for the finance director? All right, we can move on to the Turtle Up Fund update. If there is any update.
Oh, yes, there is. I'm sorry. I was just writing a note. We did have a meeting. We had a meeting last Friday. So we were under discussion with regards to moving forward with the next round of windows. There's a $200,000 appropriated in this current year's budget, which is agreed by the Turtle Up Trust back at our public hearing back in February to move forward with the next phases of the project. We did meet last week in anticipation of Bill Birch getting ready to place the orders. There's going to be a long-term order for the windows with the goal to starting the project in the calendar year 2021. So we voted to withdraw the funds from the investment fund and be ready to start spending the money and getting deposits down on the windows for December 1st. So that went ahead last week. Also, there was some damage to the building as a result of the many storms. So we appropriated some funds in order for Bill to go ahead and carry out the necessary repairs on the building.
Any questions about that? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to new business. Thompson Department of Transportation Bridge Inspection. I know, Amy, you had touched upon this a little bit earlier, but it is a separate item on the agenda. So if there was anything separate or additional, or that's right, we've got Rich here this evening.
Yes, Rich is the expert and he'll be able to answer any questions that the Board of Finance has. We really just wanted to make the Board of Finance aware of the situation and what had come in from Department of Transportation. So I'll turn it over to Rich right now.
I guess the first thing would be, does anybody have any questions about the report that was handed out?
This is Steve. I have hopefully a quick question. I noticed that one of the bridges, if I read the letter correctly, Amy, indicated a response was required. I don't know if that's an action plan required or just a general, we acknowledge it, or what might be involved in that response. I think it was the first bridge that was, I don't remember the number, but
That would be yeah, that's the first bridge that was listed was the 4800 bridge, which is on Aquatic Town Farm Road over the 5 Mile River. That's something that I've been in discussion with the inspection guys from DOT. We're going to be able to fix that in-house. That bridge was replaced when Barney Sine was in office, however many years that was. I'm not old enough to remember, but we can make those repairs in-house. We actually just repaired one of the other bridges in-house last week. We slid it in between two ongoing jobs. So there are some things that we'll be able to handle. The larger stuff, unfortunately, not.
thank you.
Any other questions about the report? I can, so basically what ended up happening was I received a phone call from the gentleman that's in charge of doing the inspections of our bridges. So the DOT does our 20-foot and longer spans. They inspect them every 2 years, and they also have inspections on some of the shorter spans that they consider are in a detrimental state that need to be kept an eye on a little bit more often. So at the moment, the two main bridges of concern for as far as the major issues in town are going to be the two that are on Buckley Hill Road, one of which is the one that goes over the canal, and the other one is the one that goes over the river. They're basically recommending a replacement project for both of those spans. In discussions with them, there is a possibility of removal of the bridge that goes over the canal, and maybe installing a large diameter culvert or a twin culvert pipe there, because there is no actual water flow that goes through the canal. It's basically just a sediment basin now, due to the fact that that raceway was closed off years ago from the reservoir to supply to the mill. So that would in turn be a large savings to the town in general to do that form of a project. But that decision is going to be made by a combination of myself, whatever engineering firm we end up hiring to design these solutions for us, and also state involvement and wetlands involvement. The other bridge that goes over the river, that one we're not going to have a choice on. That'll be a full replacement bridge. I'm not sure what the scope of the project's going to be yet, because as I said, we're going to have to hire some sort of an engineer to come in, do a more formal inspection, and start to weigh some options as to where we need to go for replacement. So I think we're going to be probably a couple years out on that, getting it replaced per se, but we're going to get the ball rolling sooner than later on the planning part. Aside from that, going back into records from old reports, so as I said, the state inspects the 20-foot or greater spans now for us every 2 years. They used to do the 20-foot and less spans. They dropped that program in 2017 was their last year, so they're no longer doing that for us, but it is a requirement that we still have them inspected. We're a little behind the ball on that at the moment, as we should have had them inspected 2020 this year. So that's something that we're going to have to look into, hiring outside company to come in to do those inspections for us on a every other year basis. Going back to 2017, there are some bridges that are noted that are 20 feet or less that are in need of repair. So I'm going to start looking into what we have to do to get those under control and costs involved, and also look into some alternative funding sources through grants and state bridge grants and such stuff like that. So a lot of things going on with the bridges. There's at least as many, if not more, less than 20-foot spans as there is on the report for the 20 and greater. I believe there was 15 of those. So we have, I'm not sure the exact number at the moment, but it's 15 plus of the shorter bridge spans as well. So that's where I'm at on bridges at the moment. Anybody have any questions?
Rich, were you going to do that? I'm sorry. Rich, were you going to
Go
do
ahead,
that
Steve.
in this year or or next year for the less than 20-foot spans?
I think at this point in time, we're going to have to, that's going to end up being a budget thing for next year. It's end of the season now, so we can start looking into what our options are, get some names, and perhaps put out a formal bid to get some pricing and such, and we'll have to talk about that into next year's budget process.
Thank you.
Rich?
Rich, it's Rob.
Oh, go ahead.
No, Rhonda, you go.
I just was curious, how many bridges do we have in town?
As I said, the current inspection report that was sent out, which I have in front of me, there are 15 20-foot or longer spans. I don't have the numbers in front of me at the moment for the 20-foot and shorter spans, but it is at least that number, definitely greater than that amount. So it's 15 plus other spans that they consider a bridge.
So out of the 15, 4 of them are in really bad shape, and then the other ones are in good shape, or are they kind of round in the bend as well? I'm just curious with all the bridge work.
I believe on the, I had another copy of this report that I had highlighted a bunch of stuff. Going through the report, the majority of the 15 bridges that are in this current report need something. A lot of them are just guardrail repair or safety related issues, some smaller, easier, cheaper to repair issues, not full replacement or full repair. I know that there was a couple of them they recommended that were steel span bridges that we hire somebody to come in and descale them and paint them to help extend their life. It's just a lot of general maintenance stuff that hasn't really ever been done or hasn't been done in years. So like I said, I need to try to find a little bit more time to further investigate costs and make some phone calls and get some people to come into town to look at these things and give us an idea of what it's going to cost us to repair.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Rich, it's Rob Wurge. My question was the same as Rhonda's, which was, how many does 4 poor conditions represent out of the total population of bridges? So sounds like it's 4 out of 15. But my second question was on the 2009 Poor Bridge report that's been around for 11 years. What do we need in terms of resources? And maybe it's an unfair question, you can get back to us, but what's the cost and how long will it take to at least get that one checked off in the short term? Because that's been around a long time. And again, I don't think we need to get into the history of the why, but it's in front of us today. I think it would be great to check that one off.
Was there, you're saying the 2000, so there's a 2000, I don't have a list in front of me from 2009. Was there a specific bridge that you were questioning or?
Aquatic Town Farm.
Yeah, it's Aquatic Town Farm Road. It says poor since 2009.
Yes.
And I think they actually even indicated that they're going to inspect that every year now moving forward, not every other year. So.
Yes, they are. And I was informed that if we didn't do something about it soon, they were going to be charging us for the inspections. As I said, a lot of the stuff in this report is old news. It's a lot of things that haven't been touched on. Obviously, I've been here for over 2.5 years, got a lot accomplished, but honestly, I'm still settling into I'm still finding out about things that hadn't been done. I'm still trying to find ways to streamline my process, and every once in a while I get something that kicks me back a couple of stairs and I kind of wonder where it came from. But as far as that particular bridge goes, that is one of the newest bridges in town. The newest bridge in town would be the one on Aquatic Road that I know we spent a lot of money to repair. That bridge, not to change off the current narrative, but that bridge also has issues that were not addressed when the work was done to the deck. That bridge was redecked, but the sub issues on the in the waterway to the abutments were not actually fixed when they did the deck. That would have been a separate project. So that is also something that I've discussed with the folks from DOT that we can handle in-house. And same thing with the 4800 bridge on Aquatic Town Farm Road. Basically what the issue there is what they call scours. So the way that the brook comes in, or the 5 Mile River comes into that bridge, the water is basically coming into what would be the west side abutment. So it's basically the water is impacting that abutment and making a curve. And then it comes under the road and it goes out the other side. So over the years, there's been a lot of erosion at the base of the abutment and in the footings of the bridge. So that there is a recommended fix that we discussed that we can handle in-house for a very, very minuscule cost. And I was told when we can get that taken care of, they will come back out and take a look at it and check it off of their list of concerns. They're very happy to be dealing with me and going in a positive direction with the, conversations that we've had, because apparently that wasn't something that happened before. It was one of those, it got told and then it got thrown over the shoulder and we'll get to it eventually, and it never happened.
So, Rich, do you have a rough idea on the cost and timing? We're going to do it in-house or within your team?
Yes.
Can it be done? Can it be reasonably be done within the 90 days? Because they're asking for a report back in 90 days or an answer in 90 days.
Yes, and I've actually already given them an answer as to what my repair will be. That is the next one that we're going to repair after the one we did the other day. We're actually going to reuse some of the materials from the first bridge that we did to repair that one. Total cost to the town on that, aside from a day's worth of labor from 3 or 4 of our guys, would be, I don't know, probably about $500 or $800.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else on bridges?
Any other questions? Rich, thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And thank you for the work that you're doing for Thompson.
We're packing away at it. Hopefully we can start making some real progress.
Glad to hear it.
I just wanted to comment too, Rich. It's nice to see somebody that's going to put together some sort of continuity with different repairs and things that need to be done on more of a long-term basis, so that this doesn't arise again, for somebody else or for you in 15 years or 20 years.
Right. My plan with the bridges is I would like to have like an A or a B rating as far as, our cooperation with the repairs and stuff. It's going to take some years to get there, but a lot of that stuff is simple. We can pull a couple a year and do certain things in-house, or, I can put together, some guardrail repairs, have a company come into town and bang out a bunch of them all at once, and we can improve those ratings very quickly. I mean, obviously it's a cost of some time and definitely some money, because guardrails and such like that are not cheap. But if we can work towards that goal over the next couple of years, eventually we won't be having this conversation. We'll be talking about doing a maintenance program to these things instead of, well, that's pop.
Thank you.
Rob Mann, Board of Finance. Yeah, I just want to reiterate what everybody else said. Thank you for all the hard work you do, Rich. It's nice to have somebody that's, proactive instead of reactive. Even, some of the things that you're dealing with now are reactive because of the past projects, but we know we're going in the right direction for some maintenance plans and to be on top of things before they fall apart. Thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
It's nice to have a plan. So thank you for putting that plan together.
Absolutely.
All right, I guess we'll move on to item B, which is appropriation request for road repair on Main Street not to exceed $70,000. And Amy, I think you wanted to talk to us about this one.
Right, and this is something for Rich as well to join in on. And it's not, we haven't received the funds, and it's not an actual appropriation as of yet. This is money, and Rich can explain in greater detail, money that we're anticipating receiving from Connecticut Water after the work that they've done on Main Street. They've proposed $70,000, which Rich and I conferred on, and Rich said, yes, that was an adequate amount. it would have covered paving half of Main Street, the section where they've done the water work. And Rich and I discussed potentially when the money does come in, going to the Board of Selectmen, going to the Board of Finance to request that it be earmarked, that it be saved for future repairs on Main Street, where we can actually do the entire road. So we wanted to bring it to the board's attention tonight. And when the money actually does come into the town's hands, we'll go to the Board of Selectmen officially and go to the Board of Finance officially to make sure that it's earmarked. But Rich, was there something that you wanted to share additionally with the Board of Finance, since you can explain it better than I can?
Just real quick, just an explanation so everybody understands how this happens, how it works is, so basically it's in the town's ordinances, in most towns' ordinances, and also in the state's ordinances, that when a utility company comes in and does an upgrade, especially in the road, they are responsible for making repairs. So what would happen, seeing as though Connecticut Water, they dug all the way down Main Street, put in a new water main, they would be responsible for repaving half of the road, because that project extended pretty much the majority of the road. So, and one of the questions that I'm going to answer before it gets asked is, why would we not just take advantage of that and have the road paved, or have half the road paved, or maybe throw a little extra money in and just get the whole thing done? And the reason why I don't want to do that is because of the condition of the road. There are spots on that road in front of Rhonda's house where the road is 4 inches thick. Once you go up around the corner, get towards the end of Reardon Road, and then the stretch down past the bakery towards the library, there's spots in the road that are 1 inch thick of asphalt. Some places are 1.5 inches thick. There's one spot where there's a 6 foot deep concrete box culvert that is paved directly over. The road surface is paved right over the top of the box culvert when there should be a couple of feet of material there. And that's a town owned culvert. So there's some issues that need to be discussed going forward. And also with the mill redevelopment and potential projects, other projects on Main Street, we didn't want to rush right into just, throwing an extra 70 grand out of our pocket to have the road paved, because I thought that would be a waste to jump into that and then eventually have it get ripped back out again for a larger repair project. So my thoughts on that were, we'll take the check in lieu of them doing a repair. And then, so at least we have something to start with. So we can take that money, if we could earmark it for Main Street itself, so it doesn't get spent on another road or another project, we have something to start out with if we're going to do a redevelopment project for our Main Street.
So honestly, at this point, it seems like it is more of a for your information type of thing, but certainly if anybody has any questions about it.
The reason when we were putting this agenda together, the way this item reads is, appropriation request not to exceed. I mean, that's usually language that we use when we're ready to actually vote on something, is because I wasn't sure just how close we are to actually taking action. So I thought, well, I'll set it up so that way, if this issue is ready to go, then we can decide on it tonight. But clearly, this is not something that we're ready to actually take a vote on. But now we know this is coming through the pipeline.
I think the purpose was just to let everybody know that it's coming. We're gonna receive the money. It's been agreed upon by both sides, from us and from Connecticut Water, and that I think Amy and I just kind of wanted to get an idea of how the board felt about doing something like that. And I had mentioned it because it had been done in the past. Last year when we did the culvert project on Sand Dam Road, that money was earmarked for that project from reimbursement from the fire department's roof from years prior. So I wanted to see if that was something that we could do again or that the board was interested in doing again, to earmark funding for a specific project like that instead of dispersing it to somewhere else.
Go ahead, Rhonda.
So the $70,000, would that have paved half the road? So does it stand to reason that for 140,000 you can redo the whole road, or no?
That would cover the cost of resurfacing. That would cover nothing else. A lot of the drainage structures that are on Main Street are old honeycomb brick structures, and there's no guarantee that those would survive the vibrations from the machinery that would be in there grinding the road out and such. There are some other issues that need to be squared away. And then there was also discussion about upgrading the sidewalks all throughout Main Street at some point in time. So the $70,000 is in lieu of paving, which is what they're responsible for because they didn't damage anything else. They originally, when they planned the project, they wanted to go under the sidewalks, which was going to be, I was kind of giggling like a schoolgirl in the background because I was going to make them replace all the sidewalks because that was going to cost more than the road paving. But that didn't quite work out because they caught on to my game. So unfortunately, we couldn't pull that one off, but at least we're getting something. And I do know that this is something that hasn't traditionally been received in the past because nobody followed through on it. So this is, it's good to see the money coming in.
Well, there has to be a budget season that we don't remove the money and put it in something else. So it has to be, there has to be a plan.
Right. That was why, we wanted to bring it to the attention that the funding is coming. We're trying to develop a plan for it. We would like to put it towards an actual redoing of the Main Street area. That way it doesn't go someplace else.
Bob Board of Finance, I just have a quick question now. After they replace their water lines and stuff, what do? They just do a temporary surface? Like currently, is that what they do?
They paved 3 inches of asphalt over in their trench, which is actually more than what's in most sections of the road. So there is the company that did the work, they do a phenomenal job at what they do, and their resurfacing program is pretty spot on. So it's actually the best part of Main Street right now is the trench that they dug, unfortunately.
Wonderful, thank you.
Any other questions? Thanks again, Rich.
Absolutely, anytime.
I guess we'll move on to item C, proposed change to budget ordinance 10.
Rhonda had a question.
Go ahead, Steve.
I think Rhonda had a question. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Rhonda.
I had a quick question. Do you guys have any idea when they're going to go under the river and under the road with that water main and the tracks?
That's something I'm supposed to have a meeting with the owner of the excavation company and Connecticut Water. I think they're trying to set something up for possibly next week, but I'm not sure yet. I don't know how soon they're going to do it. If they were talking about trying to do it before winter, but I don't know. That's we can let everybody know, and I'm sure, seeing as though it's of importance to you in your current location, we could probably make sure that you know.
Well, my yard's all ripped up. I don't care, really. I'll get a new lawn out of it. So.
They'll make it right.
Yeah.
I
was just curious, though, if they were thinking. They didn't think them like, it could be this year, it could be next year. I'm like, oh, okay. So
I think it's going to be, that's going to fall on, there is some discussion about how they're going to get from point A to point B with dealing with the railroad tracks and such. So I know they wanted to talk to me about digging a big hole in the park. So that's why we have to have some discussion. So there's a lot up in the air right now, especially since they have to deal with the railroad. I'll tell you from experience, dealing with the railroad is a very difficult task. So that could hold things up until spring, but I'm not sure yet.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other question? All right, thanks again, Rich. We'll move on to section C here, which is proposed change to budget ordinance 10-005. And I had just forwarded this to you guys 15 minutes before the meeting. So I can't imagine that anyone got a chance to read that So I'm gonna read the email that came out. It was sent by Donna Hall. This shouldn't take long for me to read this stuff to you guys. And plus it'll be reading into the record, but so this is September 23. This email is sent out to the first selectman and chairs of the boards of education, finance, and then it looks like they've also copied members of the, I'm going to get this right this time, members of the Ordinance Review Committee. Ordinance Review Committee. So this is from Donna Hall, Administrative Assistant. She says, Honorable First Selectman and Chairs, the Ordinance Review Committee of the Town of Thompson is requesting your valued input on a proposed amendment to the Budget Ordinance 10-005. The Commission is currently considering a proposed amendment to this ordinance, which would consist of, once a portion of the budget, whether it be government or education portion, is approved by town vote, only the portion of the budget that was not approved by town vote can be further modified by the Board of Finance. Please see attached ORC meeting minutes, September 10, 2020. I've also attached the existing budget ordinance language and the proposed amended budget ordinance language. I didn't happen to see the proposed amended budget ordinance language. Maybe it's in here further. It says, it goes on to say, this is Donna still writing. It says taxpayers get very upset when the town vote approves a portion of the budget. However, the Board of Finance continues to cut from both portions of the budget. Also, the past several years, we've had to hold multiple referendums to even pass a budget at quite a cost to taxpayers. Your valued input and suggestions would be greatly appreciated if you could kindly send your input prior to the committee's next meeting or attend the next ORC meeting, which will be held Thursday, October 8th, 2020 at 8 a.m. in the Merrill Sinay community room of the town hall. This comes from Donna Hall. First Selectman Amy St. Ange forwards that email to myself and to Kathleen. It's basically more of a reminder than anything else because we were both on the original email. This is dated October 8th. She says, can you do me a favor? The ordinance committee is looking for your input from you and your boards. Please take a moment to share with your board. The Board of Selectmen will be reviewing potential ordinance changes at our next meeting on October 20th, and your input will be very valuable as we make the decision to send or not send these changes to town meeting for approval. Okay, that's the email email thread. So to give you a little bit of background on this Ordinance Review Committee meeting that they had on September 10th, we'll go down to the section, they did have an item here called Review, Amended, and Proposed 10-005 Budget Ordinance. And these are what the minutes say. Donna handed out the existing budget ordinance and the proposed amended budget ordinance. Al Landry, who's on this committee apparently, likes the idea but is concerned about the state MBR mandates. Celeste, also on the committee, spoke with Orla Raftery, Finance Director, who stated that the Board of Ed knows their budget cannot be lower than the state MBR. Orla also stated that the cost of a referendum is between $5,000 and $6,000. Celeste stated the cost of the referendums just keep increasing, and lately we've been having 3 or 4 each budget season. Dick stated we never receive a state budget on time either. Al stated if the school budget passes, then the government budget will have to be cut further and further. Discussion ensued. A motion was made by Celeste Guimont to forward the proposed 10-005 budget ordinance to the Board of Selectmen, seconded by Joanne Hall. And now finally, here is the budget ordinance as it exists. Okay. If I just scroll down to page 2, then I see the part where they have the proposed changes. So here's what I'll do. So the way that it works right now, the way the ordinance exists right now, it says resolved. Now this is from September 29, 1997. That's when this was passed. And there were a couple of changes made over the years. One was made in 2008, one was made in 2019. But the way it exists now, it says resolved, the town of Thompson shall send all future combined annual budgets, which would increase the mill rate greater than 2% to a referendum for approval. And then it has other more detailed language like resolve, the town of Thompson shall send future appropriations of 1% of approved fiscal budget except for annual budget to a referendum. Resolve, the town of Thompson shall be required to send the separate Board of Education and town government budget whenever a combined annual budget is sent to a referendum for approval. This talks about like in the various appropriation amounts that require going to a town meeting versus a referendum. So the language that they want to add in here is the following. They want to say, so this is the way that this section of the ordinance would read. This resolved, the town of Thompson shall be required to separate the Board of Education and town government budget whenever the combined annual budget is sent to a referendum for approval. That's already in the ordinance. The next sentence they want to add says, once a budget is approved by the referendum vote, only the portion of the budget that was rejected by vote can be further modified by the Board of Finance. That's their proposed additional sentence. So again, they want to say, once a budget is approved by a referendum vote, only the portion of the budget that was rejected by vote can be further modified by the Board of Finance. Go ahead, Rhonda.
Who's they? Who's requesting this?
My understanding, and unless I'm incorrect, it is the members of the Ordinance Review Committee. They are proposing. They are proposing this. And I'll go back to the minutes and I see here that the folks who were present at this meeting, the members of this budget Ordinance Review Committee who were present at this meeting were Dick Trudeau, Celeste Guimont, Joanne Hall, Al Landry.
Can I jump in for a second?
Go ahead.
If I understood what I read and what you described, it sounds like they're looking for our input. However, the revised language that you read, which adds that very interesting sentence, that did not pass amongst the group here, the Ordinance Review Committee. There were 4 members and 2 voted yes and 2 voted no, if I read their minutes correctly. So sounds like that's not necessarily that's what was proposed, and that motion was made and it failed. And now they are asking for additional input. Am I correct in that interpretation?
So if you're correct, and then if you go further down in the minutes of the meeting,
Yep.
It says,
Yep.
further discussion ensued, and then a motion was made by Celeste Guimont to send a letter to the Board of Education, Board of Finance, and Board of Education requesting their input prior to the Ordinance Committee's next meeting date of October 8, 2020. So it's true that the Ordinance Committee did not necessarily endorse this, but
Right.
this proposal is coming from them, and they took a sort of compromise approach, if you will, by saying, well, let's send a letter to the other boards and get their input. Go ahead, Rhonda.
I mean, I can give my input. I think that really is restricting us in the budget goes down for the school multiple times. I mean, and then there's no place to take it from, or we can't, play around with that one, even though it did pass. I don't know. I just think it restricts it a little bit more. It seems, I mean, did we have a lot of input from the residents stating that this is something that they felt really strongly about, or is it just the 4 people on that board, or 2 people, or what do we have any input on that?
So that's a good question. And when I first saw this email that I read to you guys that came from Donna Hall, it was dated September 23rd. In her email, she says, quote, taxpayers get very upset when the town vote approves a portion of the budget. However, the Board of Finance continues to cut from both portions of the budget. And the phrase in there that really kind of jumped out at me was, taxpayers get very upset. And I thought, well, which taxpayers? Which taxpayers are we talking about? Are we talking about all 9,000 members of the town of Thompson? Or are we talking about just the taxpayers who Donna Hall happens to know? Or are we just talking about the taxpayers who members of the Ordinance Review Committee happen to know or happen to talk to when they go to the transfer station? I mean, which taxpayers, how many are we talking about here? That is unclear to me. That's unclear.
The other question would be, suppose that ordinance did change. Does that mean that we couldn't take money out of fund balance or of another area to give over if we needed, let's say that the school's at, MBR and it's still not passing. And, I mean, does it affect that? I mean, is it that solid that, we just need to keep cutting from the school? I mean, what are we talking about? just for a full understanding? Or do they not realize or know really what that effect would be?
So I don't have an answer because I'm not an attorney, but what the concern you just raised is the exact concern I have, which is, let's assume that the town, the government side of a budget passes, but the Board of Education side does not pass. Does that mean that we would, if this clause was added to the ordinance, does that mean we would not be able to take money from surplus in order to reduce the proposed mill rate increase, thus reducing the tax burden on the taxpayers and presenting them with a budget that will lower their tax burden? Because the surplus, does that sit on the general government side of the budget? And so therefore, we're now, we have fewer options. So my impression, being a non-attorney, is that would be the case. I don't know if that's necessarily, if an attorney would agree with me. If that was the case, I would be very concerned about that.
Rob Mann, Board of Finance. Yeah, when I first read this thing, obviously it was just a few minutes ago, in my brain, I kind of went back and forth with myself. I'm like, oh, that sounds like it could work. And then you go back and forth and say, well, there's consequences to that. I mean, sometimes when our board is stalemated and not going anywhere, last year as an example, we're stalemated, we know we're not getting anywhere, and we make a compromise. And that's what we did last year. We made a compromise to get the budget back to the taxpayers so we could get it passed. And that's where the slippery slope is here, because sometimes we have to be able to play with figures, or slow down a project on one side to help the other side. And I keep saying sides, it's all one budget, but really it's one budget on this side and one budget on this side. That's one budget as a whole. But sometimes we have to take from Paul to give to Peter. That's just how it goes sometimes. And to make it work without it failing over and over again, sometimes we need to have compromise, and that's just how it is. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
This is Rob. If I could jump in, Aaron, I'd build on a little bit of what Rob said. I think to me, the way I interpret it, and those are great questions that you and Rhonda were talking about, and it would be nice to understand the basis or the genesis behind why it's even coming forward and who that population is that's upset. But even beyond that, if we just look at the written word, I feel like it further divides the community, right? Because it's now putting a big line or a wedge between the two pieces of the budget. I'd actually, my feedback would be to maybe if we're going to look at the ordinance holistically, maybe go back to a one budget, because we are one town, and look at that as a proposal versus a further divide that's really going to cause even more heartache and make things even more difficult in future cycles. And that's coming from someone that's been through one cycle. People, there's 5 others that have been through many more cycles, but just that one data point that I have in one cycle, I could see this being a big issue moving forward in terms of flexibility and in terms of being able to, come to a compromise on something that would work and can be passed.
And this is Amy St. Ange. Thank you, Rob Werge, for stating that. That's been exactly the way I felt about it, that it would cause further division, and I don't think it's the solution to getting budgets to pass. But the real reason the ordinance committee and I resent the email to everybody is because we did want the input of the Board of Finance and the Board of Ed, because these are decisions that the Board of Selectmen will have to make as far as what goes to town meeting and what doesn't. So certainly any input from the Board of Finance and the Board of Education is definitely going to be considered and weigh heavily on our decision.
Rob, words to your point, this ordinance 10-005 was originally dated September 29, 1997. Previous to that, the budget was presented to the town as one budget.
Mm-hmm.
Was it? It was not separated out. And so this town survived just fine for about 200 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, a ordinance was put in place that split them out. And interestingly enough, it created quite a bit of division. And it created this phenomenon whereby referendums fail over and over again. So I guess I'm not astute enough to know exactly why that cause created that effect. I don't know how to connect the dots, but it does seem interesting that you put in an ordinance that splits them out, and it creates this I don't know if cantankerous is the right word, but this sort of tense environment. Every time the budget season comes up, there's tremendous tension, and it feels like there's certain members of the community opposed to other members of the community because each one feels like there's some kind of zero-sum game going on between each respective budget. And I wasn't involved in politics enough prior to '97 to know for sure if that has never been the case, but it sure is interesting that, 20 years ago you create this ordinance and the effect that you have is a lot of animosity every budget season. It's an interesting coincidence. Go ahead, Rhonda.
I have to agree, and I think if it, just saying if it were one, it's going to get shot down on both ends because it's one if the mill rate's too high or if they don't like it, and then the Board of Finance would come back and reanalyze everything again and move forward. I think maybe one of the reasons they did that is so that we could figure out where people wanted us to cut from, I guess. Maybe I wasn't around in 1997, but I think it would be easier to pass as one because there isn't that division and it is what it is. And they're either just going to reject it and we'll go back again, or they're not. And it's not going to be so heavily scrutinized as far as, two budgets are, I think, in a sense.
So, go ahead, Steve.
I was going to say, I agree with most of I think all the comments made so far. In addition, let me just, one thought that came to my mind is that the town and the school seem to be working much more closely together in the last few years. IT is working together. You mentioned that, Melinda, earlier. I know we do insurances, done for all parties in one policy kind of thing. So we do a number of things that affect both the school and the town in concert. So if we just, if we end up being only able to impact one budget, there may be ramifications that hit the other budget unintentionally. And I think that's one of the things we would lose if we can't address both sides of the budget if the budget fails. I tend to agree with the budget as it is divided is divisive for our whole community. I think we might be better off going to the old way of having a single budget. It doesn't pass unless both sides pass, so why not just make it a single budget? I think that makes more sense to me. Thank you.
Just curious, Amy, do you know if other towns separate it like that, or is it mainly just us? Does anybody know?
If I might just ask, Kathleen has done some research on that, and I don't know if she's listening right at the moment, but she's done some research on that, and if she could be allowed to speak, I think she might be able to help us out on that question.
Kathleen.
Could I be recognized?
Oh, absolutely. Hi, Kathleen.
Hi. We had our meeting on Tuesday night, and we discussed this at the Board of Ed meeting. And there are 43 towns in the state of Connecticut that have a bifurcated budget. There were 44, but Salem, Connecticut, they united their budget again. Oddly enough, I was reading a study. Most of the budgets split their budgets apart because of the budgets were failing, so they split the budgets apart, and now the school budget passes most of the time and the town budget doesn't. I'm preparing a small presentation or my speaking points for you for your meeting, Amy, on Tuesday night. We discussed this, and we did feel that it's become very divisive for the town, and it's getting worse. It just keeps getting worse, and it's getting worse. It's creating an us versus them mentality. We took it to say that we don't agree with the ordinance committee's findings. We don't agree with that at all. And we also took it the one step further to reunite the budget. The school the school budget would still be a separate number, separate line item on the United budget. We would still do a presentation of each budget separately, as we do now. And the workshops, I don't know why you go through the town line by line by line. We could consolidate the workshops as to the town did their presentation. You could just ask the town questions that you have about their budget. You wouldn't have to do the long drawn out workshop sessions. As you do with ours, you ask us questions about what we feel and what we did within our budget. And because what we do now is we have the two separate budgets and then we mush them all together and come up with one mill rate.
Do
Yes,
you
ma'am.
know how many towns there are in Connecticut? You said there's 43 that have the separate.
There's 169 towns in
169.
Connecticut.
Okay.
Okay,
So the majority of them,
do not have a split budget, no. There are like 20.
75% around to be
Yeah,
exact.
but there's 25 towns that have a piece of their budget that they need to vote on just the school, but it's not really their town budget. It's because they're regionalized, they vote on the high school.
Right.
That doesn't, they have their grade 1 through 8 school in their town budget, but then they have to vote on a high school regionalized budget. So it's a little muddy there. But that's different for them voting on a separate school budget.
thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, from Ian, Board of Finance.
Mhm.
All right. Yeah, I thought long and hard about the combined budget. I'm actually not in agreement with a lot of people. I like the separation of the budget only for one reason, not because it creates animosity between people, but I like it because it lets the voters themselves tell us where they want the adjustments to be made. That's the one and only reason. If we don't have that in there, if we don't have a yes or a no saying, do you agree with this side or do you agree with that side of the budget between school and municipality, then we don't know where to make those adjustments, and we're just flying by the skin of our teeth, basically trying to know where the voters want us to make the adjustments, or if they're just looking at the mill rate as a whole. And if they're looking at the mill rate as a whole, then they're not paying attention enough to know where they actually want things done.
Well, Rob, I respect.
Rob, if I could,
Okay, I'm out of here.
I wanted to jump in, Kathleen, if I could. Rob, I guess I understand the logic of the way you described, but if that holds, then why not have, and I'm not a proponent of this, but why not have each department then voted on so that we can get feedback in terms of who supports the money going into the fire area or the library or all the other roads and transportation. I really feel pretty strongly that, we got a 23-year experiment that just happened. It failed. We've had more referendums, as Aaron pointed out, and they're very costly. And if we go to one budget, so I totally disagree with making it more restrictive because I think it's taken that experiment and just elongating it in a worse environment. But if we go to one budget, there's still transparency around every department and then all the line items within the department. So it's not that the voters or the people won't be able to see it. They can be active and see that and have input into that and make changes along the way. I think it would just bring things together. And I was unaware that 75% of the towns have a unified budget. So that's another interesting data point that we're in the extreme minority with respect to that.
So I just wanted to kind of add to that what Rob said and what both Rob said. I understand your point, Rob Mann, so you can kind of see where to take the money from. But at the same token, if it's all one, we can just say, you know what, let's say it fails horribly, the budget does, and we need to go down 1 mil. We can basically look at the percentage of that budget that's the school, the percentage that's that town, and take, maybe 7% off each budget right off the top of the line and let those budget figure out where they're going to make those cuts so that it's equally being taken from both sides, proportionately.
If I might make a suggestion or a thought anyway, it's possible to add on referendums sort of qualitative questions. Do you think the school budget's too high, too low, or just right? Those questions can be added to the referendum. That might give us feedback to Rob Mann's concern, and it's a fair one about how do we get real feedback about what taxpayers feel, or voters feel, I should say.
So
And that's a way to get some feedback, maybe by asking those types of qualitative questions. And maybe it would be too divisive, I don't know, but it's a way to get some response.
I know this is getting off track, but on your point, Steve, I always thought it was a good idea to put a question in there because the school has failed so many times since I've been on the board. I don't know what was going on before that, to find out what they really want. You know, do they want to continue with the school and, you know, really just it doesn't grow, it doesn't prosper because there's not enough money going into it? Or do they want to look at regionalization or something else so that we can at least come to some solution? Because obviously something's not right there, because it's just been a problem since I've been involved anyway for 5 years. And I understand, you know, everybody in the school comes on and they want us to make sure we approve their budget, and it doesn't matter if we put the whole budget out there. It's going to get rejected time and time again because that's what happens. So I would like to see, you know, and I think it's the Board of Selectmen that puts those questions out there, but that's a big question. And maybe we need to find out what the answer is so that we can move forward in the direction that the town's going to support one way or another. And it may not be something that everybody likes, obviously, but I don't know. I don't know the answer. And this is my last year on the board, but that's my input.
Rob Mann, Board of Finance. Yeah, reiterating what Steve Herbert said. You know, if it was all one budget and they had those questions, some people have voted no for the school budget, not because they wanted money from the school budget reduced. Some people vote no on the school budget because they don't agree with the budget and they want more money given to the school. Right. So having those questions, like Steve mentioned, is a positive idea. You know, it really is.
I think it is. It's a good idea.
Any other thoughts?
Aaron, it's Rob. Not another thought on content, but how do we want to deliver this? And
Yeah, that was
who's
what I
going
was
to
thinking.
draft?
I was going to say, you know, Amy, is this something that your board is going to deliberate over? Was that the purpose of this, or was the ordinance review committee expecting some kind of formal response from us?
Well, officially, the general protocol from what's been described to me is that the Board of Selectmen makes recommendations to the Ordinance Review Committee. Tara had been formulating a blight ordinance that she wanted to present. So a lot of their work, and I can't discount their work. There are some, there was like an issue with the veterans ordinance for the veterans credit for the assessors department that Paul had picked up. So there's a wide range of little ordinance changes, the driveway ordinance, the transfer station ordinance. So their work has been really great, but ultimately it's up to the Board of Selectmen to decide which ordinances move on to a town meeting, which again, still hoping to have one of those in November is my projected time at this point. So yeah, your input, the Board of Ed input, is great to decide where we go from here. Do we unify the budget instead? It will fall on the shoulders of the Board of Selectmen to move it to town meeting. So does that answer your question?
Does that mean that we're good for now? We don't need...
Oh, yeah. Well, the 3 selectmen are here in the meeting. So we've certainly heard your comments. I'm happy to share it with the Ordinance Review Committee. I don't think, like you said, Aaron, they were divided 50-50 on whether or not two opposed this change and 2 were for it. So I think that says a lot. So yeah, I don't know that you necessarily need to respond unless you wanted to do some type of formal response, but we could always share the video of the meeting with them.
Suggest that they listen to the recording.
Yeah, exactly.
And I would be reluctant to speak on behalf of the Board of Finance, knowing that we haven't taken a vote.
Right.
I'm always careful that if the Board of Finance takes a vote on something, then I can speak on behalf of an action that the Board of Finance took. But
Okay,
I'm always careful to not speak on behalf of the board when I'm not really authorized. I feel like I'm really not authorized to do so because no official action was taken.
right. No, absolutely. And I think there was a robust enough conversation tonight that we could share the recording with them. And they could certainly view that and, take away a lot from that.
Thank you.
Amy, in addition to the robust discussion around content, could you also, to the very beginning, just so we don't lose sight of it, could you also press them on the very initial questions around where the data is coming from?
Right.
Let's substantiate the reason for the change. We're talking about a change without knowing the foundational reason as to why a change is needed. And I think that would, if that's presented like in those emails and the letters that Aaron had read, we'd have a better perspective because we know the context by which they're even making the change. So we got right in, we got into a lot of the good discussion on the content, but very, very interested in the whole foundation of it and the context and the why behind it. With real data, not just an opinion by one or two townspeople, like real data would be helpful.
Okay,
Yeah, and that's why I highlighted the phrase taxpayers get very upset, because I thought, well, that's a very broad, it's an incredibly broad statement. It's a very, very non-specific statement. And I'm reluctant to take official action based on something that is that non-specific.
right. Agreed.
All right, if there's nothing else on this item, we'll move to appoint King and King as auditors for FY. Okay, the way it reads in the agenda is it says appoint King and King as auditors for FY 19 and 20. I believe we mean FY 20 to 21.
I don't think so.
No,
Because-
that's correct, Aaron.
Yeah,
It's the end of year ended, the year that ended, so it is 21.
It's the fiscal year 1920.
okay, so it is correct. So meaning it was the fiscal year that ended June 30th.
Correct.
So, all right, so basically it's fiscal year 20 is what it is.
Yes.
All right, so Orla, I suspect you have some thoughts to share with the board as far as appointing King and King as auditors for FY 20.
Okay, yes. So I did report to you guys last month that we were in discussions with a number of different members, including Amy, Melinda, Aaron, myself, and Bob. And we did look at two different firms. It really came down to the timing of when the auditors would be available to carry out the audit. The two firms were Mahoney and Sable, and the other firm was King and King. Mahoney and Sable, based on the timing, would not be able to start the audit until after January, most likely the middle of January. And in reality, we wouldn't be filing our audit until possibly March. And that just didn't make sense. However, we did have the company King and King, although we would be required to file an extension, they would be able to start field work on the audit during the months of November and December, which would work better timing for Bob and myself and our staff, just in relation to our budget season. Budget season starts as soon as late December comes around, and the last thing we would need is be dealing with an audit during January and February. So the bottom line is, Melinda, myself, and Bob made some phone calls and got in touch with some names that we received as current clients of both of these firms. I know Bob spoke with Columbia, and I think Melinda spoke with Brookline. I spoke with Putnam. All three of those companies are currently using King and King. They all gave great references. They all had good relationships. They've had a great experience with King and King. So it came down to whether we should consider a 3-year contract or whether we should consider a 1-year contract. And the general consensus was at this time it made sense just to pursue a 1-year contract. So they did provide us a proposal, which I did forward you today, and I am going to share it on the screen. Just make sure that I have the information up here. With me 1 second. So I provided you with the overall big document of the proposal, but what I'm going to share with you now is the pricing involved. So just bear with me one sec. It should be coming up on the screen right now. So what we have here is the cost for 1 year to prepare our budget for the fiscal year 20. They did break down the proposal based on the amount of time that they anticipated spending on the town side versus the Board of Ed side and the WPCA here. So the proposal would be 56,600. And as you can see, the breakdown would be town would be 29,900. School would be 28, and then the WPCA 5,900. Now I know on the town side we've budgeted 25,000 for this, so it's a little bit bigger, and we'd have to come up with some additional dollars to cover the difference. I'm not sure on the Board of Ed side, but I know on the WPCA side, unrelated to the town, but I do have enough money in the budget to cover the 5,900. Just to give you an idea of comparison, I think last year I didn't have the full cost. The fiscal 18-19 budget overall for the town, the Board of Ed and the WPCA cost us approximately 44,000. So this is substantial more dollars. The original proposal that they had provided to us was based on a 3-year. However, like anything, they would, knowing that the additional work spent in year 1, they were spreading the cost over the 3 years. When I did go back to them and to state that the group that we're discussing and reviewing this were proposing 1 year as opposed to 3, they did let me know that most likely the cost would increase by between $4,000 and $5,000. So that's where we have our 56,600. I know from my perspective, any of the dealings I've had with any of the individuals with King and King so far are very good. And also, I think I brought to your attention last month that I did mention their name to Bill Plummer at OPM, who's our contact with regards to appointing an auditor. And he gave some good comments about the firm too. He has no problems dealing with the firm. So that's pretty much it. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead, Steve.
Just as a general understanding of this proposal, they list the number of hours I see here. If they, I mean, one of the problems we had with our prior orders was that they spent a lot more hours than they had anticipated, apparently. And they wrote that off, and if I recall the auditor's comment, it was about $35,000 to them that they wrote off, something like that anyway. If they end up spending more hours than what's shown here, does this mean we will pay more?
Possibly.
So that this is not a firm price. This is a price assuming these hours. If they need to do more hours, the price goes up?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
That's the same.
If I could follow.
Oh, never mind. I see the bottom of the, I didn't see that before. I see the bottom.
I'm sorry, it's on the page.
Yeah. It's Rob Wirge. If I could follow up on Steve's question, because I was going to ask something very similar, and that is, Orla, in the towns that you talked to that have had these great experiences, did anybody ask the question of how King and King did with their hour projection versus their actual hours? I mean, is there history showing that when they do these kind of quotes, they kind of nail it, or are they typically underclubbing it and coming back for more money?
I did not ask that question, and I'm not sure whether Melinda and Bob asked that question either. I did not ask that question.
It's a super important element in an hours contract. And when you're dealing with these type of contracts and they come back as what happened with the last firm and they're asking the same questions over and over and replacing people and you're going to get people up to speed, there's things that happen on both sides that create the scope change. So I would ask that. And the other recommendation would be to have them report to you. If you're the owner, Orla, and I think you own this, you're accountable for this, have them send you an hours expended report. So you know, if we're halfway into it and we're 70% through the hours, we're in trouble. If we're halfway through it and we're 40% through the hours, then we're probably pretty good. And if you ask for that hours expended report on a weekly, or I don't know what the right cadence is, maybe it's every other week, but at least that'll allow you to have complete visibility on where the train's going before we get there, right? So we're not having a discussion about 10 or 20,000 over. You'll be able to see that clearly in advance if you can get them to send you, if you ask them to send you that report.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. I will do
Okay,
so.
sure.
This is Steve again. I wonder if we might, if Bob or Belinda, since they were involved in this, if they might have a comment to offer us. I'm not saying they do, but if they do, it would be an opportunity for them to speak.
Oh, I know that when I contacted the superintendent in Brooklyn, she said the firm was very attentive, answered all her questions if she had any. They were extremely professional. They were very efficient. And so those were the words that she gave me as feedback. I didn't ask the question around the additional hour charges, but she did give very a good appraisal of the work that they had done for Brooklyn.
Thank you.
I had asked about how good they were with picking their time. This was the person who was, I talked to the finance director in Brookfield, who used to be an auditor for a firm that I had used in another town. I mean, they don't make their money billing for excess hours. They make their money by not using the amount of hours that the baseline's for. I mean, because she and I talked about, particularly with the issues that Bloom was having, saying they were writing off charges. And she said, well, that's what happens with A, you lowball, and B, you don't figure in the right amount of hours. So she felt that when she's used them, that they use less hour. I mean, they make, and she being a former auditor, that's their firm made money by not using all the hours that was the base. So say if the base was 300 hours, for example, and they made their money by only using 280 of it.
Thank you. There you go.
Well, I was looking at the section of the budget where we make room for this, at least on the town side. Is it the line item called financial and accounting in the Board of Finance budget?
Yeah, that's correct.
And is all of that 25,000 for the audit, or is not all of 25,000 for the audit?
No, it's all for the audit.
Got it. So at this point, if we were to go with King and King on the town side, we would need to come up with an additional $4,900.
Correct.
Got it.
This is Steve again. What was the other firm in the same ballpark in terms of price?
The other firm did not give us a proposal.
Oh.
They asked me, they said that they would go to the effort of preparing a proposal if we were willing to work with them on the timing of the audit. Our concern at the very beginning was the fact that the earliest they could prepare this was starting in January, and that just didn't make sense. So I didn't pursue any further in obtaining a proposal.
And how soon can King and King start, Orla? And given the hour schedule, when do you think they would have it complete if we were to go with them in the near
So their
term?
anticipated schedule time would be late November. So they would be carrying out field work late November into December with the anticipation of filing in January, at the very latest beginning of February.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
In my personal thinking on, this dilemma we're faced with where we've got King and King says they can come earlier. The other firm says they can't get here until later. We've got an offer from King and King. At least my thinking for now was I'd be willing to retain King and King for 1 year, but I wouldn't want to retain them for more than 1 year. When we come into the spring of 2021, that would be the time for us to put out a request for proposal and thoroughly review not only King and King, but possibly this other firm as well as any other firm. Do a thorough review before we sign somebody on for 3 years. I feel like we can do one of these sort of emergency deals for 1 year, but I wouldn't. I feel like this is kind of an emergency situation. I wouldn't want to lock a firm in for 3 years based on an emergency rationale. Just hire King & King to get us through 1 year, and then go out for a request for proposal and thoroughly review 2, 3, 4 firms. And if King & King wins and we retain them for an additional 3 or however many years, great. But I would only want to have them on for 1 year under these circumstances. At least that was my thinking leading up to this discussion.
I totally agree with that, Aaron, for additional input. I think getting on it earlier makes a lot of sense, and doing 1 year, it's reasonably in the ballpark. It's not that it's way out. It's a little bit higher than what we budgeted. We knew where we were last year was too low, and the firm actually deprioritized us, and we're the last call they're going to call back at the end of the day. It's going to get pushed till tomorrow. That's not where we want to be. So I totally agree with you, Aaron. I think let's get this done given the time constraints, but try to get a little more data for next year.
Do we need a motion to approve this?
A motion to appoint the auditor.
I'll make that motion to appoint King & King as our auditors for the year ending June 30, 2020.
So there's a motion to retain King & King and Associates to perform our audit for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2020. Is there a second to that motion?
Rob Mann, Board of Finance, I'll second that.
Great. So motion made and seconded. We're not voting to appropriate money, so we can just do a sort of voice vote here. All in favor of retaining King & King Associates to perform our audit for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2020, signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? All right, so this carries 5-0. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
So then the last sub item under new business is section E, called review of proposed 2021 Board of Finance meeting schedule. And I believe Dottie included that when she sent out the agenda.
Yes, I got it anyway.
Okay, great. Any concerns about that proposed agenda? Excuse me, schedule, calendar, calendar schedule, any concerns about that? I believe we vote on the schedule for the coming year. Okay,
So if you need a motion, I'll make a motion. We adopt the schedule as proposed.
so there's a motion to adopt the schedule as proposed. Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
So motion's been made and second to adopt the schedule as proposed. All in favor of the schedule as proposed, signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? This carries 5-0. Thank you, everyone.
Aaron, can I ask a question? Do we have when do we put the schedule together for the budget? Those dates?
So wait, so maybe I don't understand your question.
Well, this is just the regular meetings, right? This isn't the budget season meetings?
The workshops there.
I
I think
believe,
they're at the end, right?
yeah,
Yeah, I know they're
yeah,
at the end. I was just
workshops.
wondering when we were gonna do that so I could put them all on my calendar.
let's see.
They're on the bottom, Aaron, I believe. Budget workshop dates, March 4th.
They are on here? Oh, okay.
Additional meetings exclusively for budget workshops are March 11th.
Oh, I see that. Okay, I'm
25th,
sorry, I
April
didn't
1st,
see that. All right, thank you.
Good. Any other questions? So we'll move on to old business. Additional appropriation funds for dog kennel not to exceed $10,000. And Amy, I believe you had some thoughts to share with us on this one.
Absolutely. So things are moving forward, but just not moving as fast as we'd like them to move. Part of the problem is finding contractors that are available right now because so many people didn't go on vacations and are actually doing renovations in their home, as evidenced by our building official and building department and how active they've been over the last few months. So things have kind of slowed up, but we're continuing to move forward. We did have the state animal control officer come and do an inspection of the facility. His name is Gary Wilson. He's been into the facility twice now, and he's really supportive and helping us navigate this. He did come in with a bigger list of items that needed to be repaired, certain trip hazards, fencing. The quarantine run needs to be lined with plexiglass versus the steel that's on the quarantine run currently. So in total, we're coming up at this point about $5,000 or $6,000 short of the contractor estimates. We did get 3 contractor estimates for the construction work and 3 electrical estimates. And choosing the lower estimates is bringing us up about, like I said, $5,000 to $6,000 short. So just to be certain, there are no other incidentals. We were coming before the board today to request an additional $10,000. This would be coming out of the dog fund, which currently still has $61,000 in it. Orla updated me on that this morning. But from the 10th, the initial appropriation was $10,000, which would leave us with $57,000. So this would be an additional $10,000 out of that account, which would bring the balance to $47,000 if we expended another $10,000, which I'm not foreseeing that we'll need to, but just to be on the safe side. So.
And in Amy's defense, when she was letting me know that she wanted to put this request on the agenda, I asked her for an approximate dollar amount, and she kind of gave me a similar response to what you're hearing, which is what, 5, 6. And I said, well, how about we just call it not to exceed 10, because it feels like this continues to be an evolving project. And so if we just say not to exceed 10, then if it comes to 65 or 7, you'll still be covered. So that was my suggestion in the wording of this item on the agenda.
And there are so many items. I mean, the buildings hasn't really been taken care of over the last few years. And I was there with another contractor today, and he said it's surprisingly in wonderful shape considering there's been not a lot done to it over the last 5 or 6 years. So.
Any questions for the first selectman on this one before we?
Is this the last request, Amy?
Yes. I hope so. I keep having to tell John Filchek, I keep having to push the date of reopening, further out, and it's so stressful.
I appreciate the fact that you have enough so you take care of the incidentals. If something comes up, you have an unexpected item pops up. There's enough funds to take care of it.
Right.
But we just did approve 10,000 last month, so hopefully this will be it.
And what was the name of the fund that this would be coming from again?
It's the dog fund.
So then if I have this motion correct, I'll make a motion that we appropriate funds from the dog fund for the purpose of addressing deferred maintenance needs at the Thompson Dog Kennel property, not to exceed $10,000. Does that sound like a fair way of describing the motion? Is there a second to that motion?
Rob Mann.
I'll second that, Aaron.
Rob Mann's got it by a fraction of a second. He gets the second. So motion's been made and seconded to appropriate not to exceed $10,000 from the dog fund to address deferred maintenance needs at the Thompson Dog Kennel property. And we are voting to spend money on this one, so I'll go around the table. Rhonda, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Rob Mann, how do you vote?
Yes.
Steve, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Rob Wurge, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes, so this passes 5-0.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. We'll move on to Board of Finance member comments. Are there any Board of Finance member comments at this time? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn, Aaron.
Rob Wirch has the motion.
I'll
Second.
It sounds like Steve had the second by a fraction of a second. All in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? This meeting is now adjourned and it's 8:50 PM. Thank you so much, everyone.
Have a great